Investigators found nearly 200 bodies.
They removed 189 sets of human remains.
200 bodies were found improperly stored.
190 sets of decaying remains were found.
100 improperly stored bodies were found.
Stop! Have you heard about the nearly 200 bodies that were found inside of a funeral home in Colorado? Well, let me tell you about it. My name is Violet from Sniper Rats. Alright, so this is going to be a long video, so go ahead, strap in. But I heard about this story on the radio a few months ago, and I haven't seen or heard or even looked at anybody talk about it. And it became my Roman Empire over the last couple months, and I want to talk about it. Just like the boys in the Roman Empire, I'm obsessed, and I want y'all to become obsessed too, just so we can talk about it, because this case right here, insane. It's crazy. Just watch and wait and see. You're gonna love it. I guarantee that you are gonna be obsessed. So obsessed with me. There were 189 corpses found at the Return to Nature funeral home located in Penrose, Colorado, kind of south of Colorado Springs. If you're not really too familiar with the Colorado area, like me, I'm not from Colorado. I have no relation to Colorado. But yeah, anyways, I absolutely love the fact that Google says that the place is permanently closed. Like that little cancel button just adds a level of passive aggressiveness energy, and I'm just here for it, man. The very first website is a news story mentioning the owners by name and saying he's facing 100 charges. Like, could you believe that? Could you believe we don't got a jacuzzi? Mm. Before we really get into the story, I just want to clear up a little fact about the case. All right? All right. So there were 189 bodies found at Return to Nature funeral home. However, when you look at articles and the actual charges of abusing a corpse, it's different. So one person had been buried, and funny thing is, it's the wrong person. But I'll get into more details about that 189 as we get further in. But just know it's 189 that they found. All right? All right. This lovely photo came from John's Instagram account that was for Return to Nature, and it shows John on the right, and then Carrie Halford, who's in the middle, and then I want to say that that's John's dad, because in the Instagram post that this came from, it was saying how he's a multi-generational funeral home owner whose ties to the industry stretch time spent in Wagner and Muskogee, I don't know, Oklahoma. Over the years, the Halfords opened multiple commercial locations in Colorado Springs, and according to that Instagram post, he described himself as a third generational funeral home director with 19 plus years of experience. And that's such a big, bold claim from a man with over 200 charges and 2 confirmed evictions. But we're going to get to that, don't worry. Return to Nature Funeral Home specialized in environmentally friendly funerals, also known as green burials. Now, you might be asking, what's a green burial? Well, it means that they don't cremate or embalm the bodies. While this practice is perfectly fine and legal in this state and in other states too, but there's a main rule that they have in Colorado. This is the only law they have in Colorado for funerals. And that is as long as there is proper refrigeration and proper storage. Now, I'm going to repeat that to stress how important that sentence is. as long as there's proper refrigeration and proper storage. As we already know, because I'm making this video, that in this case, there wasn't no proper anything. So the funeral home opened up in 2017 and things went to shit in 2019. I have some stats from the affidavit, but it's not up to date since it says 141 that were identified at the time that it was written. And they were able to identify that 23 of the bodies from 2019 and 61 were from 2020. I don't have the stats for the year 2021, but in 2022 they collected 17, and in 2023 they collected 40 more people. However, this isn't the only time that they've gone to court. John and Carrie Halford have gone to court a couple of different times. As I stated, they got 2 evictions under their belt. So Kenneth Davison, an attorney that was representing the property owners for Kenny and Company. It's a real estate company that's out there, I guess. But yeah, so they had rented a space to John and Carrie and says that they were living inside their building for some time. In 2023, Kenny and Company had took the Halfords to court for an eviction. The company stated that they never paid their rent and the Halfords owed $1 million. A judge ruled in the favor of Kenny and Company, so the Halfords were evicted and sentenced to pay the owners $103,000. But this wasn't the first time that they were forcefully evicted. They were evicted from 2 different rental properties that they were renting in 2019, and they were running late on the rent in another one in 2023. So that's a total of 3 evictions, like 2 that were actually forcibly evicted, and then another one where they had been running late on the rent and they were about to get evicted. However, we're gonna get into why. Giovanni Long had rented out a place to John and Carrie Halford in August 2023. She had received her first month's rent in September and then never heard from them again. Despite being bound to their lease to pay $2,000 a month in rent, Long had to take the Halfords to court, and a judge allowed her to enter the premises, and since she owned it, and ordered that the Halfords be evicted. And when she entered the property, it looked like they were still living there. That's not a picture of the house, it's just a perfect example of a lived-in house. But most of their stuff was still there, including a $500 Louis Vuitton bag and some watches. But according to the Halfords, they had a family member with dementia that caused them to have a family emergency and hastily left without making arrangements. Long stated that allowing this family to move in ended up costing her thousands of dollars. The Halfords also had some trouble with a lawsuit from the Wilbur Home Crematory for more than $20,000 in unpaid services. They actually ended up leaving a negative review on Google for Return to Nature, talking about the bill and how they're ignoring them. And I am so mad at myself because I should have screenshotted it the day I saw it, and I didn't. I'm mad because then apparently Carrie's or somebody had went on there and deleted all of the bad reviews, all of the reviews that was stating how messed up this company is and how they were like using people and stuff. They deleted all the bad reviews and like even commented on somebody's recent review, and I feel like that person was like a bot or something. Like I don't know nothing. I'm just making an assumption. But anyway, here's the arresting photo. John and Carrie Halford, the owners, are being arrested for suspicion of committing 4 different felonies with 260 criminal charges, including 190 counts of abuse of a corpse. And also, look at this amazing album cover that I found. If you're into like heavy metal, I say give it a listen. There was like another one that I really liked, but it was kind of like graphic, so I couldn't even show it. But it was called like Flesh Hoarders. It was too cool. It was too cool. I'm not gonna show it because it's like a dude eating somebody, but still, like, oof. And I'm mad because I couldn't get the okay from my partner. Like, she was like, no, don't do that. Like, people are gonna be like upset. It's graphic. And I'm like, God damn it. We supposed to be cyber reds. Like, what are you talking about? It's okay. It's okay. Just know it was cool. I had a whole joke for it, but we're not gonna get into it. Whatever. I went on like a whole tangent just because of the abuse of a corpse. But yeah, so it was 190 charges of abuse of a corpse. And then we have 70 other charges. 70. And that includes 4 counts of theft, 61 counts of forgery, and 4 counts of that good old money laundering. And here's when they got their blues on. I wonder if people still fucking with them when they got their blues on. And when they done fucking, does Johnny carry to put her shoes on? Sorry, dumb joke. I know. Yes, I understand that they were wearing orange. I'm not blind, even though I wear glasses. But how else would I make the joke? Plus, like T Grizzly isn't even wearing blues in the video. He's wearing oranges. Okay, it correlates. Don't play me. Just a fucking joke killer, huh? Anyway, and just so we're clear, there's definitely abuse of a corpse. I mean, you don't get to numbers like that without doing some actually deplorable behaviors. So there's no question about that, but I know you're probably curious about the money laundering. So money laundering is when you use dirty money, like money you got from a crime, and make it clean by saying it came from a legitimate business. So if I was a drug lord and I owned a nail shop, let's say I got only 5 clients that come in regularly. I would lie and say I got 100 clients. Or I might hike up business costs when reporting taxes. So you bought 100 nail polishes when you only bought one. Really good examples of media that talk about money laundering is Claws, Ozark, or Breaking Bad. All 3 shows have a money laundering premise where they have to buy a business in order to get rid of that dirty money and make it clean. But in this case, I want to make sure that you know that my next sentences are speculation since the articles I found while making this video apparently don't like to explain things how I like to say them. And I have to make an educated guess, also known as a hypothesis or a theory, a game theory. We miss you, Matt Pat. I wish you came back. Or it would have been a theory until I got my grubby little fingers on the affidavit or evidence used to get an arrest. So, my original theory for why they have a money laundering charge is because they were giving people fake ashes. So that means that they were accepting payments for their services. So they were lying to their customers to get money and kept the money. So in this case, it's fraud. But technically, money laundering, since they committed a crime. And in this case, that crime was getting that money and getting it as a business profit. So, kind of a roundabout way, but it makes sense that they got their money under false pretenses and committed a crime and disguised the money as legit money. But again, I don't know. That was speculation, a theory. The forgery also comes from the false information on that paperwork, which also hints to what I said. Um, Oh, wasn't that a fun little theory on how money laundering worked? I was so cute and naive when I first wrote this script, but after I found the unsealed affidavit with the crimes on it, and it states the exact crimes they broke along with evidence of the crimes, I think I might have been promoted.
We just fired the person that does that, but now you have been promoted. You are now one of my elite employees. Thank you so much, honey. Now you can get back to work.
I really did get promoted. I went from a nosy internet sleuth to an internet detective. Like, look at me. I know my mama will be proud. In the state of Colorado, money laundering is when a person tries to do a financial transaction that involves money or anything of value, and the person knows that it came from a criminal offense with the intent to purchase an item in order to conceal the source of said money. Ron and Carrie used the money from the victims' families in order to purchase a $92,955 GMC Yukon in November of 2021, and they sold said Yukon for $79,000 in June of 2022, along with the purchase of a 2016 Infiniti for 28,336 in June 2022, and then selling said car for 14,600 in May 2023. The act of purchasing these cars is money laundering. Now, at first, I was confused on what they were even talking about because I have to rationalize everything in this little P brand I got. And they bought that car with dirty money and they sold it for clean money, and all of the money that they got was dirty. None of it could be washed until they bought those cars and then sold them. So the act of them buying the car with the dirty money that they got from the victims' families and then selling the car and getting money is what the money laundering is. So since they did that, like all of that money that they got was now clean money because they had a verifiable transaction. And since they were committing like criminal offenses to get the money to buy the car, now it's clean because they sold it. Like, it makes sense. Like, all right, we good, we good. I hope you good. Pro tip. If you're committing crimes, don't buy anything with that dirty money and go ahead and sell it. That's another charge. All right, all right. Okay, y'all, so we had already talked about abuse of a corpse and the money laundering, so now let's talk about forgery. For forgery, these charges come from the Halfords falsifying death certificates and sending false statements to the state of Colorado. The death certificates for at least 190 people are wrong since the bodies were reported to be cremated or, in that one case, buried, and none of them actually were. Yet, Return to Nature still submitted these death certificates to the state of Colorado, and Return to Nature also dealt with over 1,000 death or deceased, I should say like that, 1,000 deceased people. And it's kind of hard to say whether or not all of those other death certificates are correct because, I mean, you already got damn near 200 wrong. So, I mean, I definitely understand. Sadly, though, Colorado only has a 3-year statute of limitations for forgery, so not everyone's death certificate will be charged in this case. So even though there's 190 verified to be false certificates, there's only 61 charges of forgery. And then real quick, I just want to mention that the theft charge, it came from John and Carrie Halford making contractual obligations to cremate or bury certain individuals and giving their remains to the family in exchange for money. However, John and Carrie never gave out the actual remains because, the people were there. So, yeah. Interesting factoid, Colorado is the only state that doesn't require licensing or any type of certification for funeral directors. And the state doesn't regularly do checkups on their funeral homes. They actually don't even have laws that require a licensed funeral director to be involved in making final arrangements, like, cremation or burial processes. But they do have a law that requires bodies to be either embalmed or refrigerated within 24 hours. It's also legal to have an at-home funeral since unlicensed people can be taking care of bodies. Now that we're brushed up on Colorado's legal practices, I just want to mention that this probably isn't the only place. There's been 60 complaints about other funeral homes. These complaints range from mislabeling to abandoning bodies or improperly embalming. There's even two directors who are arrested for selling body parts. There's also a lot of money laundering going on in different companies, and I think it's based off of what I said earlier, along with what they got caught up for. There's also a very similar case that's going on right now with a man that has a very similar name. His name is Mike Halford, and it's so funny because whenever I look up the case for it, the Halfords come up, like Carrie and John, and it's because John's name is John Michael Halford. So Mike Halford keeps coming up, or it keeps coming up as John, and it's like no. But anyways, yeah, Mike. Mike did a very similar crime of hiding a body in a hearse along with keeping hold of 35 people's remains, which is kind of insane in itself. Like, give those people their body. Like, give the family the bodies. Why are we keeping them? These people are so weird in Colorado. By the way, the Halfords that we're talking about is one L, so it's Halford. And then Mike's name is Hallford. So it's like one L versus two. So yeah, this is just weird. Something definitely is weird going on in Colorado. Let me know if you guys want me to talk about the people selling bodies, because it was like 800 bodies that they sold. But yeah, you might be wondering how we got to this point and how they figured out about what was happening at the morgue. Well, two things happened. One, a county coroner had reported bodies being mistreated, but nothing was done. And two, the smell.
Do you smell it? That smell. The kind of smelly smell. The smelly smell that smells smelly.
They were getting complaints about the smell. However, multiple coroner reports fell onto deaf ears until the overwhelming smell and complaints about said smell. I just found out that they were in a semi-remote area where the only thing nearby is a post office and a few spaced out houses. So just know it's probably way worse than you could ever even think of if they were getting complaints about said smell. They had to have known and been seeing the complaints, and they sitting there cheering like, "We stink, we stink."
We stink, 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 we stink.
Just like that video, I feel like that smell was just like a overwhelming green cloud of stink that just encompasses that whole area. Like, I don't know, man. John was lying through his teeth and said that the smell came from his taxidermy hobby. Like, dude, unless you killed a whole family of elephants, there is no reason for an overwhelming smell from taxidermy. Like, what are you doing in reality? According to the affidavit, on October 2nd of 2023, a woman informed Sergeant Michael Jolfie that yesterday October 1st, she went to the funeral home and noticed a horrible smell coming from the building. And mind you, this woman, she was planning on buying this funeral home. She was just going and looking at it to see, the space and stuff. And she noticed this fucking smell. Oh my God. She informed the detective that she was working in hospice and at a funeral home, and she recognized the smell as human decomposition. Ugh. I was watching a video about the case, and it mentioned that the day before the investigation, a deputy came in and did a quick search. I want to let the video play, but I really recommend that you guys watch this video if you're interested in the case. It's called Body of Lies.
This is Deputy Teal with the Fremont County Sheriff's Office. We went over there and looked at the funeral home. Everything looks okay. No, it's not the most pleasant thing in the world, but unfortunately, it's been like that for a while and there's nothing I can do. It is a legal operation, so...
He said everything looks okay and there's nothing that we can do. But in the photos that I've seen, you can literally see blood coming out of the entranceway of the door. Look at that. It's being covered up by the plastic bag and the cardboard or wood that's right there. But in between that little spot, you can see a blood stain that's old right there. It's, oh my God. On October 3rd, detectives and Fremont Chief Detective Coroner Laura Allen went to the Halfords funeral home. They noticed an overwhelming smell of decomposition coming from the building. The windows were covered, so it hit the inside of the building, and the Fremont County Sheriff's Office had been getting complaints regarding an odor, but there was nothing that they can do since the building is a funeral home.
Randall, there is a cow outside.
There's a cow farm. You're gonna find cows outside.
No!
Investigators noticed a dark stain coming from the bottom of the door frame onto the concrete in some areas, and it traveled up the exterior stucco. The detective and the coroner both agreed the stain matched other cases they've seen involving decomposing human bodies. The coroner called the Colorado Department of Regulatory Agencies, or DORA, and explained the observations that were made. A representative of DORA stated that John Halford, the owners, agreed to meet the inspectors and was allowed to do the investigation inside of the building. John Halford told DORA that he was using the building to learn taxidermy and he was having some problems. Dora and John set an appointment for 2 p.m. on October 4th of 2022. You don't believe what happened next. Just guess. I'm gonna give y'all a second. If you guess, that motherfucker didn't show up. You were right. The door inspector, Joseph Berry, did an exterior inspection and found a small hole in the window covering. And upon looking in the building, he saw several white plastic bags that Coroner Allen confirmed that they were the body bags she used in her career, as a coroner. So, with this major discovery, we got a warrant. Well, actually, Detective Joffrey applied for 2 search warrants for Return to Nature. The first basically said a full-on hazard team for this one. Let's come back. And the second one is where the actual search happened. The Return to Nature is a pretty big building. It's 2,500 square feet. So we're talking about a huge house, a 5-bedroom, 1-story big. I have a picture of the layout, but it's a Xerox of a Xerox, just garbage quality. And script me is saying draw it, but real life me can't draw. So we gonna see what editing me does, and editing me still don't give a fuck. So sorry. So in this building there are 12 rooms, but they found corpses in 16 places. There was a body in each room. including the bathroom. The only place they didn't find a body was the utility closet, which is room K as pictured in the very top right corner. Um, the sheriff's office originally found 115 bodies, including fetuses, infants, toddlers, and adults that were improperly stored. Ah, the rainbow of human depravity. With this story, the number of bodies can and has changed due to the identification and the investigations of the bodies that were found. The updated total that I found is 190. However, with that 190, there's still people who haven't been identified. Speaking of identification, a process was made to help ID people by using their fingerprints from DMV records. Some people still had their hospital bracelets on. X-rays, medical records, and other identifying features like serial number from medical implants were used. They tried to match dental records, but that's a long process and it didn't give results on time. The fact that they had to use all of these different methods show how badly decayed these people were, since there's no evidence of them doing a visual ID, and there's still 22 people who haven't been identified as of April 2024. So just 2 months ago. They also started this investigation in about October of 2023, so it hasn't been a year yet, but over 6 months. At the time the affidavit was written, they had 141 bodies that were identified using the methods stated above to find their death certificates. They had 23 of the bodies were from 2019 and 61 were from 2020. I don't have the stats for the year 2021, but in 2022 they collected 17 more, and 2023 they collected 40 more people. Not sure how long the bodies sat, but we can confirm that the bodies sat at room temperature from September 9th of 2023 till October 4th of 2023. 25 days, or at least 3.5 weeks at 70 degrees when the investigators walked in. Trigger warning, I'm about to show some examples of decay, and since we have a potential start date, I want to go over the decomposition process so you understand how we got to people juices and awful smells. So if that's something that you're not really interested in, like, you can skip forward. I'll put a timestamp right here so then you'll know what's going on. There are 4 stages to human decomposition. Researchers found that decomposition starts within 4 minutes of death. The first stage is called autolysis, I don't know, or self-digestion, and it happens at 0 to 3 days. During self-digestion, the blood in the body is no longer able to circulate, causing a buildup of carbon dioxide and waste. The carbon dioxide buildup creates an acidic environment and cell membranes start to rupture. Once the cell membranes rupture, they release enzymes that help eat the cells during self-digestion. During self-digestion is also when the 3 stages of rigor mortis happen. And those 3 stages are alga mortis, when the body temperature lowers to the environment, and then rigor mortis, where the body gets stiff. I think everybody's probably heard of rigor mortis, so I'm not going to go into the depths of what rigor mortis is. And livor mortis, where the blood pools to the bottom surface of the body. So depending on how the body is positioned, that's where the blood sits. Stage 2 is called bloating, and it takes place from day 4 to day 10. All the enzymes from the first stage created a lot of gas, which can make the body double in size. The sulfur in the body creates a skin discoloration, and the smell of sulfur attracts a lot of bugs, along with alerting others that someone has passed. For obvious reasons, I'm not going to show a dead body bloated, so I showed a live person. Stage 3 is active decay, and that takes place from day 10 to day 20. Your gastrointestinal tract will start to decay, and dark liquid will, oh my gosh, dark liquids will start to leak out of your orifices. This signifies the start of active decay. Organs, muscles, and skin start to liquefy while hair, bone, and cartilage stays. This is when a body loses most of its weight. This is also when bug activity is at its highest. There's maggots and beetles, then maggots that eat the other maggots. I started laughing. I couldn't even be serious. But there's maggots, and then there's maggots that eat the other maggots, and wasps that eat their eggs in those maggots. Just know it's a lot of maggot on maggot crime going on in your liquefied intestines. Anything your body was touching is now covered in mold. As your people juices ferment on the ground, the stage produces the fluids or people juices. I'm sorry, y'all. I have written this down, and this is like my first time really reading it, and I'm just like, ugh. I can't believe these people let this shit happen. Oh my God. All right, so just to turn down the disgustingness and amp up the funny aspect, I'm using pictures of skeletons, but just know we're getting to stage 4 or 20 plus days in when your body starts to skeletonize. So, your body becomes a skeleton and you actually lose your hair, flesh that's remaining on the bones, and the bones are starting to dry out. The insects left and wasps and beetles are still there, but they leave when everything else is gone. And it just leaves like the microorganisms that eat your hair and like what else is left of it. And after researching this information, it makes sense why photos of the crime are blocked out. Yeah, because this would be awful. But yeah, enjoy this video of a skeleton's working.
This movie, yeah. Turn around, put it in there. You the shit, huh? Get it on the floor, bust it down. You the shit, ma.
An FBI agent testified when they walked into the horrors of this Colorado funeral home. They were faced with stacks of partially covered human remains, bodily fluids several inches deep on the floor, and they were surrounded by flies, maggots at different life stages, along with other insects that were infesting the whole building. The insects were all over the floor and surrounding the bodies. It doesn't sound like proper refrigeration or storage. I also want to point out a key fact: these corpses were in various stages of composition. As I read more and I get deeper and deeper into my script, it starts to become harder and harder to be funny. The FBI also stated the bodies were stored in various different ways. They were wrapped in plastic, in body bags, stored in cardboard boxes, and plastic totes. And I just wonder if it's the babies. Like, it has to be the babies that were in the totes, in the boxes. At least that's what I hope. Then again, I don't know. It's bad. And it gets worse. Some of the bodies have been exposed, like no covering, just sitting there festering or just partially covered. Some of the bodies were on gurneys that were used for transport, and they were just some laying on the floor on top of each other. During the trial, they showed photos of the bodies stacked on top of each other, in multiple rooms. There were more than 40 bodies found in a homemade refrigerator. Oh God. There's also photos of the floor covered in a dark brown fluid that came from the decomposition process. Oh my God. And as I mentioned earlier, it was several inches deep on the ground. Apparently, it was so bad, the authorities had to put down cardboard to prevent slipping. It was a slip hazard. In many of the clear plastic bags, decomp fluid had filled these bags, and some of them busted open from being so heavy with fluid. Pictured is not the fluid, but I gagged at the actual image from Google of the fluids coming from a person's nose, and this looks close to it without being gross, and this is just a mysterious fluid, not decom fluid. 5-gallon buckets from Home Depot and Harbor and Freight were used to collect the fluids, and they were strewn all over the floor. Several areas were inaccessible due to the bodies being stacked so high. The building had 3 refrigerators labeled C and L, but none of them worked properly. In room G, refrigerator L, the door was open and bodies were stacked in front of it. In room B, refrigerator C was homemade and was powered by a window air conditioning unit that was still running. However, the door was open to the refrigerator, so it was useless. The overall temperature in the building was 70 degrees according to a thermostat on the wall. During the search warrant, investigators found Raid bug bombs, large Arm & Hammer brand baking soda containers, and Febreze containers. A large bone grinder was found in one of the rooms, and next to the grinder, they found a black and gray bag of Quikrete concrete mix. An empty bag was found in the trash can, and it's possible they were using the concrete along with other chemicals to give to the families. Investigators found personal effects or artifacts of the family members that were most likely given to return to nature by family members with the intentions of being buried with their loved ones. As I get deeper and deeper into this case, I'm just so disgusted with these people. Return to Nature was experimenting with a water cremation, also known as alkaline hydrolysis. I don't know if I said that right. But a new process to dispose of human remains in pressure, heat, and water and potassium hydroxys, aka lye, which is also used to dissolve a body in about 4 to 6 hours. This process produces a fatty waste product and leaves the bones behind. Like, you're joking, right? But sadly, I'm not. This is a legal practice in 28 states. And I'm just curious, is this where some of that fluid that these people were talking about came from? And I just have so much to say, but I'm gonna wait. A family member of one of the people found it stated that for months she was left to her imagination, but to actually see what was going on in there was beyond horrific. And just to think that our family members were in there and everything that we saw, they truly treated them like trash. Her statement is so true when I found out about the different ways that they were quote unquote stored, if you can even say that. It's just sad. Whenever they mention how the bodies were stacked on top of each other, it just reminds me of one of those episodes of Hoarders. Apparently, my voice wanted to crack like I was like a 13-year-old boy. But yeah, it reminds me of one of those episodes of Hoarders, and it kind of makes you wonder if they were hoarding the bodies in some type of sick and twisted way. Prosecutors done found text messages, and if you seen my last video about Jimmy Pesto, you already know text messages be getting people caught up. The text messages they found were between the owners of the funeral home, John and Carrie Hoffer, showing that they were in financial troubles and they were getting scared of getting caught for mishandling the bodies. They were even thinking about digging a big hole and covering the bodies in lye and just setting it on fire. And as we all know, lye is used as a very well-known way of disposing of bodies. If you heat lye to 300 degrees Fahrenheit, you will be able to melt a body in 3 hours, while cremation needs to have a heat of 1,800 to 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit for 2 or more hours. Using lye would have been a way quicker and easier option. The investigators also found lye when they found the water cremation station. So, me, I'm wondering if this idea came before or after they started water cremation, because that's a very important question that shows intention of destroying evidence. But I'm not a detective and I'm only speculating. But it's pretty weird that they had lye in a bone grinder. I mean, it would make more sense if they were trying to use water burials as a cover up, especially since they were using his taxidermy hobby and wood burning hobby as cover ups for the smells. I don't know. These bodies were found being stored at room temperature, and normally at a good business, they will be kept at between, 36 to 39 degrees Fahrenheit, so basically near freezing. By the way, I need y'all to thank me for searching this shit up. I probably didn't end up on some type of list, but at least y'all taught y'all how to like get rid of dead bodies. So you're welcome. Whoever needs it, it's there for you. Investigators even found animal remains in bags of packed concrete. Some relatives of the deceased found that the ashes they were given were actually fake instead of their actual loved ones. The families have been carrying around, and probably talking to, crying over cement mixed with concrete for years in some of the cases. Oh my God. However, investigators were able to give out the victims' ashes to the family members in December of 2023. Sorry for that. Oh my God. But it's just the more I read, the more I'm disgusted. They actually had a veteran who served in Vietnam and the Persian Gulf War among the people. And with veterans, they normally want to be buried at a veteran cemetery and have like their full military honors given to them. Mm. However, investigators realized after finding the bodies they still had the body of a veteran. After confirming the death certificate, said that the person was buried at Pikes Peak National Cemetery. Now, Chrissy, the all-time king of this whole video, who helped me be able to make this because he's the one who wrote the affidavit, he was questioning how the fuck did this person who's at a cemetery be also at the coroner's office. Investigators had gotten a federal warrant to exhume the corpse, and there was a person of a completely different gender in the casket, and she was wrapped in duct tape and plastic sheets, and she was heavily decomposed. One of the layers of plastic that was there had a last name and a first initial on it, and it was a completely different name than the veterans. Now, Chrissy, he's a big detective, and they were able to find her death certificate by Return to Nature. When they looked at the certificate, it said that she was cremated by the Rose Lawn Cemetery. However, they had no records of her being there. Return to Nature had received $2,078.26 in exchange for the burial, and instead let a veteran rot with 188 bodies and buried a random person. This person received full military honors and was buried at Pikes Peak National Cemetery, which is a military cemetery. I'm surprised that's not another charge on top of what it is. Like, because it's stolen valor and claiming that you're in the military when you're not. And it's illegal. It's a federal law that can get you either a fine or even jail time or even both. But burying a civilian in a military cemetery is perfectly fine, I guess. But there's a special place in hell for these people. The initial investigation took place in October 2023 when they found bodies in the abandoned building, meaning that the owners fled and just left this building for the cops to find. And in November of 2023, police officers arrested the Halfords in Oklahoma. So they did a little mini dash. And I'm mad because when I looked it up, how far these places are, it's literally just going over to the next state. So they didn't do nothing. Like, I'm curious why they were like, yeah, it's probably just no man's land, but you're so close. Like it was like a literal 4 hour drive, like a long day trip, and you went there to like flee your crimes. I doubt they even did the smart things like change your name or go into proper hiding in a different country. And he has ties to Oklahoma. Like it's actually funny because they didn't even really do a run. Like John and Carrie, they went to John's dad's house and somebody like one of their neighbors ended up going and being like, hey, that's John's truck, they're looking for John. And the police came, they identified his truck being registered to John, and then they swooped in and arrested him. So I'm just upset because it's like you literally chose the worst possible location and you ran to your daddy's house. Like you are done. You're really, really done.
T-shirt, you done left fingerprints and all. You are so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
Hey, honestly, I'm so glad they got caught. These are some very sick individuals, and I don't know why, but their mugshots, you can see some type of evil in their face. But I don't know, like John, he looks a little sad, but like not necessarily like remorseful. And then Carrie got the nerve to have a slight smirk on her face. Like it's not like necessarily happiness, but it's like her lips are pressed, almost like she's trying to give a secret. But I don't know. I'm just looking at body language. What can I say? I'm a little empath. I be doing it. Nah, I'm really just a girl, and I just thought it was something interesting to know. In the articles that I've read, it seems like this makes sense just because John seemed like he cared a lot about his wife and didn't want to get in trouble. Like he understood that they were in deep people juices, as they would call it, and they needed to figure this out. But then again, there's also messages about wanting to take a shower after a body transfer and how he got people juices on him and then proceeded to order a lettuce wrapped double cheeseburger. Yeah, that's a sick person to create a lunch order after moving bodies and getting juices everywhere. And also, a lettuce wrapped burger is just diabolical. Like, that sounds like my burger is gonna slip or slide all around and everywhere. There's also text messages from John to Carrie that were read in court, and they said, "I don't give a fuck about this family. I don't give a fuck about what's going on in Penrose. We are not going to prison, and we're getting the fuck out of this community. My one and only focus is keeping us out of the jail. What's yours?" Investigators also did a search warrant from the other Return to Nature building, which is at 944 Elton Drive, Colorado Springs, Colorado. The search took place on October 5th of 2023. Detectives spoke with the landlord and was told back in August another tenant complained about the smell of dead bodies coming from Elton Drive. Ugh. Another complaint? Let's do nothing. The landlord approached John during the daytime hours of September 8th about the smell, and John said that the smell was coming from a wood engraving machine and he'll get rid of it today. John had just so many hobbies. I wonder how he was able to get any work done because he was doing taxidermy and wood engraving. Good on you for having hobbies. Good on you for having hobbies, but in reality, we know what actually happened. During the search warrant, they found video surveillance cameras around the property and took the tapes to be analyzed. In the affidavit, they stated to have footage from August 22nd to October 4th, and they found footage from the surveillance cameras on the early morning of September 9th. So, the night of that complaint, investigators believe that Carrie was outside of the building acting as a lookout for John while he was inside, since her phone had pinged off cell towers in the area, and they were able to find Sean by the tattoos on his arms. Note to self, if I ever do a crime, let me cover up my tattoos or wear a fake sleeve. And he was screwing in a light bulb, scanning the area before he went inside the building. John went inside to grab a gurney to transport what seemed like two more human bodies. An interior camera caught some of the room, and which showed multiple deceased humans in the room, including a body on the gurney that was still not covered and still had the hospital socks on and a diaper on. The body already started to decompose, and before Halford grabbed the gurney, he had to flip over the bodies I mentioned onto the floor using a sheet that was underneath it. John wiped away the remaining decomposing fluid from the gurney and onto the floor.
That's nasty.
Disgusting!
I tried to look up returntonaturecolorado.com, but the website is no longer available. But thankfully, the affidavit is coming in clutch. Thank you so much, Christopher Adams. I hope every night your pillow is cold, your food is hot every single time you microwave it, and your children get into their dream schools on scholarships and they're top of their class. You, sir, have single-handedly helped me make this YouTube video. Sorry, I just had to give thanks to my hero. According to the affidavit, the website stated that as of July 2023, Return to Nature no longer did cremation services, and we will honor existing arrangements for direct cremation only. Christopher just needs a raise because he also listed the prices of like the services that they were doing and like the months that they were giving out the services, and just but I just want to quickly mention that the natural burial, including a ceremony, was 1,895, and for direct cremation, it was 1,290. The most craziest and unexpected shock of the century is that this place actually has good reviews. At the time of when I wrote this script, it had 4.7 stars with 74 reviews, with only 5 bad reviews. And we're going to pretend like it's still that way. Because they had deleted all of the bad reviews, like as I was writing the script, like they just edited it like a few weeks ago. And I can't find the reviews that they had, but it's funny. It's just, why would you delete them? You're already in jail. Like, what the hell? So bear with me. I understand that all of the pictures I'm showing are good reviews, and I'm going to be saying bad ones, so don't just know I'm not reading them. But yeah, one is a neighbor that was complaining about parking and questioning how this place can be so compassionate to their customers, but they're asshole to their neighbors. Their words, not mine. Another 1-star review was from a person complaining about an unpaid debt from the funeral homes. They owed them money from cremation, and their services have been ignored. The last 3 were about the crimes that took place here. There's a single 4-star review with nothing, but the other 68, damn, we're so close to 69, but no. The 68 reviews are 5 stars and honestly very glowing reviews of the company, where they're honestly all just saying how compassionate they were, and they made the process so much easier, and they were extremely helpful and understanding. And the worst thing is that these people didn't know what was going on behind closed doors. These people were at the worst time in their lives. They lost a loved one and came to these people to help make an arrangement and paid them for their services and glamorized affordable prices just to find out years later your loved one wasn't actually buried or the ashes you received aren't real. You might actually have the ashes of an animal or construction materials or, God forbid, somebody else completely. The Halfords stole about $23,500 from these families, and that's how much they can be criminally charged for. However, between 2019, 2020, and 2021, Return to Nature made $765,139 and serviced 887 clients. My sweet honey Christopher, constantly making my life easier, made a chart with the numbers of people that were recovered and ID'd at that point with the financial documents with the totals received in general and for the locations found at the Warner location. If he's married, Mrs. Adams, give him a double-handed twisty Glock 3000 for his hard work. But all right. Okay, so y'all, so he had identified and confirmed the invoices for 124 out of the 136 bodies that were ID'd at the time. He also calculated that the families had given about $146,909 to the Halfords. Prosecutors found that they were using money that they collected from the families to use on lavish expenses. And I'm not going to go into full detail about the money aspects, but just know that it was spent on a trip to Las Vegas, along with like Ubers, hotels, restaurants, lots of nice things for these messed up people. But just know that they spent pretty much every single dollar that they made. In total, they deposited $1,996,382, and they were in the negative with $1,998,444 in withdrawals. They were spending around $35,000 on average monthly, and they spent $5,200 in Amazon purchases, $6,800 in travel expenses on Expedia, $3,400 in jewelry from Tiffany & Co., and a trip to Las Vegas, Nevada for $5,000. A trip to California was $2,400. Airline expenses, $3,600. And the worst of all, just $1,800 on some other stuff too that I can't remember. I forgot to write, but yes. The initial investigation took place on October 4th, 2023, when they found the bodies in the abandoned building, meaning that the owners fled and just left this building for the cops to find. The Halfords actually fled the day that the search warrant happened and the news started talking about them, so they kind of got a little tip-off. I already gave my opinion on this, but they did a little mini dash and it's just over to the next state. And I'm curious, but like, I get it. Like, yeah, it's probably like no man's land, but you're so close, a 4-hour drive. Like, oh my God. The funeral home has now been demolished by EPA or environmental protection agencies, and even some of the families came out to see the building being torn down as a memorial to the 190 victims. A family member of one of the victims has said that this place being torn down will help free the souls of the people, and also stated that it should be a memorial, which is true. That land is going to be haunted, and I think that they should treat it like a cemetery and have a big plaque with everyone's names on it. So they did want to do a natural burial, and since there's no way to have their final wishes met, I think that trees would be a nice way to honor them. One tree for every person that was found. Another family member stated that the place is small, and in the news clip you could see the size of the building from different angles, and she's right. It's tiny. I can't even imagine what it looked like inside of there. I have so many questions because this is how 200 people look. Like in this photo, this is 200 people or just about. So to have that many people in this small building that I'm going to show after the clip that I have, but still, it's just insane to even think of them being crowded together like that and stacked on top of each other.
I appreciate all of your hard work.
Notified in the fall, Samantha learned the ashes she received from Return to Nature were never her grandmother's.
Yeah, it's small.
Inch by inch,
This is the building. This tiny little building held 190 people inside of it. And I can't. I feel so sorry for all of the family members that went through what they had to go through just to be able to even get their loved ones. Like, oh my God. These comments were underneath the video that I'm about to show, and it just fits perfectly. But I don't really have like a proper segue for the next things that I'm about to say, so I'm just gonna get into it. But during the trial, John Halford was greeted by a gang of cameras and family members and chose to remain silent. Whenever he was asked questions from the news and even family members of the victims, like Heather DeWolf, who used Return to Nature to cremate her son, and her son is among the 22 unidentified bodies.
We spoke with one victim who says she's still waiting to hear from officials on whether or not her son's body was among the ones found.
What did you do with my son? This is my son. What did you do with him? Where is he? Where is my baby?
Those are just some of the questions Heather DeWolf had for John Halford as he left the El Paso County Courthouse today.
When he wasn't answering, I got angrier and angrier. I deserve an answer. We all deserve answers.
Halford bonded out of jail just over a week ago. During the hearing, a judge ruled that all 260 charges will stand against both John and...
She asked him, "What did you do with my son?" And another family member screamed at him, "You let my son rot for years and let rats eat his face. Where's the rest of my son? The 100 pounds he lost during decomposition while he laid in your funeral home? Where is it, John? Did you flush him down the toilet?" And if I was John, I wouldn't even know what to say. I wonder if he even remembers these people and if he knows which body is which. If there's some way to identify the people that were turned into juice, or is it possible to like do a DNA test on the families to the unidentified victims? This is honestly so sad because they'll never get the full closure of having their son with them.
News 5's Maggie Bryan was inside the courtroom today for his preliminary hearing. And Maggie, one family member wasted no time telling him what she thought.
Diane, since John Halford is out on bond, he walked through the main doors of the courthouse just like everyone else. And as soon as he entered, one woman confronted him.
Do you have anything to say for yourself for what you did to my child? 4 years you left him rotting there in a pile with rats eating his face, and you have nothing to say for yourself?
The questions many family members want to know.
You have nothing to say for yourself. Where's the rest of my son's body? The 100 pounds he lost during decomposition while he laid in your funeral home. Where is it, John? Did you flush it down the toilet?
John.
Before I end this video, I just want to state my theory on how we got to 190 bodies. I think that maybe things might have started off fine and, everything was legit, that they were able to, conduct business as usual. But after a while, it got to be way too much and they weren't able to keep up with doing the cremations on time. And I don't know who got the idea to give out fake ashes, but they did. After the pandemic, the amount of bodies nearly tripled. So that shows that idea worked really good. But at this point, they had 84 bodies on hand, and why they decided to keep going, I don't know. Maybe it was for the money, maybe they got too deep. Regardless, the text messages show at some point they started worrying about how to get rid of the bodies. And in those text messages, they were trying to cover up the crime. They stated that they needed to fix a machine ASAP, and I'm curious if this was a cremation machine. Like maybe a broken machine caused a pile up, and they weren't able to afford getting it fixed. Now, if that was the case, the actions would make more sense, but there's legal ways that they could have dealt with getting the machine fixed. Like, they could have gotten a loan or they could have made a GoFundMe page, but both of those would require some type of admission of what was going on. And as of early 2020, they were dealing with people juices. And that starts to take about a month to start happening, as we've already discussed. I really don't know what this segment was supposed to be. I just wanted to try to talk it out, come up with some type of motive. But after talking about it a little more, I don't think I would have done the same thing. I know for a fact after the first year with bodies left over, I would have disappeared so fast because why is the funeral home not getting rid of bodies? How the fuck are you just sitting there with dead bodies rotting? And I'm surprised they never killed anyone with that many bodies in your possession. What? I didn't know anything about this case before I researched it. I thought I was gonna be making some silly, goofy video, making fun of these people, and just getting the word out there just in case that there's a family out there who came to this place and unknowingly got scammed since there's still bodies that haven't been identified. But no, I end up finding out that there is something weird going on in Colorado and how they aren't treating their dead properly. And as I mentioned very briefly, that this isn't the first time someone had to investigate a Colorado funeral home. Megan Hess and Shirley Knox were arrested for stealing and selling body parts of 800 people from 2010 to 2018. Yeah, that's right. 800 people being sold. Then we have Miles Harford, because it's Harford. I was spelling it wrong earlier in the video. I don't care about editing it. I'm sorry, but I've spent way too long on this video. But yeah, Miles Harford, who committed a similar crime of hoarding cremated human remains of 35 people. He was also riding around with the corpse of a woman in his hearse for a long period of time. I don't know how long. I didn't look into the case, but still, what? These stories were all reported on recently, and the ends of the trials are coming up or have already passed. And after John and Carrie's trial, Colorado lawmakers need to update these laws. There's no reason that in the months of January and February 2024, there are two separate cases of funeral homes hoarding bodies and one mutilating and selling human body parts. This is sick and awful. I can't believe that there's not an immediate update of laws after 3 consecutive cases of abusing like hundreds of people. These people can no longer advocate for their safety and treatment, and most people know not to disregard / disrespect the dead. And in all cultures, we have a way to take care of our dead and for families to trust someone with their loved ones and starting their final arrangements. Why are we allowing these businesses to go unregulated and unchecked? This is absolutely ridiculous. I hope that soon there's can be some changes, at least requiring checkups. These checkups could have been preventing all of this from happening. And what if they just did like 2 mandatory checkups a year, then a couple random ones just to make sure that the business is legit? Like, I don't know. Like, I understand that there's not enough government funding to be able to do that. However, there's no reason why this should be happening and why it should be happening for so long across multiple businesses and other businesses having 60 different complaints. You know what I mean? Like, I can't understand this. And it makes me upset. So now we're at the end of the video, and I just want to say that this topic has been very hard to research and stuff, and kind of upset how long it took me to make this video, but I do want to say thank you to all the people who watch or just watch our channel in general. I do want to give a big thanks for you. And I also want to say please like, comment, and subscribe if you do enjoy this video, or if you want me to make more content like this, or if you just thought that this was such a crazy, intense story. Like I said in the beginning, I haven't heard anyone really talk about it, just a couple YouTubers here and there, but still, this case is insane. And please let me know if you want me to do a video about Megan and Shirley, who had been abusing 800 people. So, thank you so much again, and I hope that you guys are having an amazing day. And if not, I hope that I can make your day a little bit better. Bye.